Thank you so much for taking time out and speaking with ET Now.
Thank you. It's always good to have you here.
I want to start off by talking about the target that you set for 2025 of $125 billion of green financing, climate change, as well as green bond issues. How far are you as far as the target is concerned? And specifically, when you talk about India, what are some of the challenges you're seeing with respect to the depth of the bond market?
So, two things I would say. This was our target, which our CEO laid for the bank, of 125 billion by 2025, and it includes all sorts of green financing, advisory, intellectual capital, all of this in one pot, because then it makes sense, because that's a transformation from climate change that we all need to really work towards as the world. As Bank of America, we are already there at around 70 billion plus. In fact, we have been pretty aggressive in this space. The first green bond was issued by a European bank way back, and that was underwritten by Merrill Lynch. The second one was also done by us. The third one we ourselves issued in 2013, a green bond for our own raising capital. And subsequently, in most of the countries, we have been number one, including in India, where we worked with Exim to do the first US dollar bond in the international market. So it's been very close to us as a company to make a change in this direction. To your point on the second point as to, what are the challenges, this concept needs to be understood well from the retail perspective. So the education will have to be done. So while we started with the first Exim, there have been good issuances also followed up by big government companies like REC, NTPC, which made a difference. Axis we had done, which also did. Renew had done with NIRG assets, which had also done. So there have been several other momentum. But going forward, the amount we have raised is just 6 billion. If I just were to look at what China did at the same time with us at 2015, they had suddenly become the largest green bond issuer for the infrastructure that they are doing. And I think why India should not be, and that's a question for all of us. And points like, if we are doing states and smart cities, whether we can carve out and do the bonds. So we have at least started with the municipal bonds and the audit and tracking of the money and the usages. I think the next step forward, once we really do the state finances properly, it would be we could use even those people to really raise more and more green bond or climate change bond, because water is equally an important issue which we cannot ignore.
To take your point forward, you spoke about eco-friendly bonds. In a sense, you're talking about water, you're talking about a cleaner environment. How do you see India stand as far as eco-friendly financing is concerned? We spoke about the challenges. What do you think is the roadmap going forward, and how will we ride the challenges? Because that would be something important for India really to see an uptick as far as eco-friendly financing is concerned.
So I think, all this is a part of the climate change, if I may say. If I take Prime Minister also, he had suggested to start with 40% of our, energy should come from renewable space. Also at the climate change, if you really look at it, India has played a bigger role in getting this. So on an eco-friendly perspective, I think it's very important, because as we go through industrialization and more capex and more growth, and given that we have a good population and we are a consumer market, which is why everybody is investing in India, we do need to create, as you correctly said, the eco-friendly financing to generally help with these initiatives. But the point is, we need to keep the labels the same, which are globally, because what we need to do is attract global funds in this, objective that we have laid out for ourselves, right? And they have very predefined what qualifies for a green financing or a catalytic financing or a loan, etc. And we need to be part of the same global ecosystem to be able to attract bigger pools of money. We've been doing a lot more with Canada pension funds also. So, growingly, we should be sticking to the guidelines, just like how Basel is, and embrace it and see what parts of our financing can go into it. So, for example, even the metros, right? Everywhere we see things dug up. But the metro, part of the big part can be classified as eco-friendly financing or the green financing, and we need to make those separations, and we have done. Exim has done for some of the global, like the Kenya trains and things like that. But, we need to work towards that.
You spoke about the expected revival in the capex cycle. We aren't really seeing much of that happening right now. In fact, as far as investments is concerned, it's at a reasonably low level. When do you expect this to kickstart, and what impact will it have on financing as a whole from Indian corporates?
So I think we all feel that, there is a activity which is taking place. As you know, the government sector, PSUs, if I may say, are really lending and going out of their way to get the capex kick-started, and they have done. I also feel most of the capacity utilization, that slack which we have, has actually come up quite a lot. And if you see, most of the analysts who have really looked at India, including us, do feel that the capex recovery is just round the corner, and more projects are also being bid in that direction. So I don't think India as a market will not invest in capex in 2018.
So we've really been talking about some sort of a boost that the economy needs. Do you think that emerging political certainty will give that much needed boost as far as the investment cycle is concerned, as far as overall financing is concerned? Really to kickstart the investment cycle, to sum it up, will political consensus, emerging solidarity and certainty on that front for the upcoming elections give that confidence to the business community?
So I would say this political certainty is always a plus in the bag. But India has always been also a bottom-up story, which we can't really ignore. And I think the investment cycle and the growth that is really astounding. I think the next 2 quarters itself, with the base effect, the earnings per share, and I'd mentioned this in my earlier interview to you, that, they will be good, right? So there is a clear need, and the consumerism in India definitely is leading to a lot of FDI also taking interest in our country. So the ecosystem is to have a shared ecosystem. What we can do more is to really make our PPPs a little more, stronger, and, work towards how we can make things easier for them. And that can be a renewed, another line which can actually bolster up the economy.
My last question to you, we've been talking about 2017 being the year of IPOs. We've seen IPO levels peak. Do you think this momentum will continue in the year forward, or will we see some rationality creep in as far as valuations are concerned?
I think, if I go back to your earlier question, if we are seeing growth, I don't know why we shouldn't have more IPOs. And obviously, I think there will be a lineup of IPOs in the coming 6 months for sure. And, companies for their growth also are looking at delevering the high debt. And that also should bring in many different ways of equity financing of the projects.
So what kind of lineup are we seeing? Since you pointed out that the next 6 months we'll see a slew of IPOs, or what kind of a bracket are we targeting perhaps?
I think most of the companies, banks will continue, the NBFCs will continue, because, all of them need to fund in that perspective. This year, the lending was a little restricted, if I may say so, because we were going through our own bank resolution. All this will be far behind us, and capitalization will happen. Besides these, there will be other newer companies and projects also who are definitely putting in the required projects to grow, and all this will require, whether it is a whether it is an IPO or a QIP, it's all sorts of equity financing, if I may classify it together.
So to sum it all up, with improving political certainty at the center and clarity on that road ahead, you do feel that India is all geared up for 8% GDP maybe?
I would say I have to stick to what my research analyst says, and we definitely think that the growth rate is going to be much higher than the last few quarters. And also, we must not forget that the positive impact of both demonetization and GST being out of the way also is going to bring us back on into that foray. So, I feel people are much more positive than maybe 6 months back. And Moody's rating also suggests that India is looking better.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your perspective on all these matters. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.